Is this true restorative justice? You tell me. Salutations. Hope all is well. I am FloridaFreddie. Today we are going over an article from Wink News, investigative reporter Céline McArthur. Exclusive Lee County's little known crime and punishment program is a true restorative process. Now, Uh, for those of you not too familiar with what restorative process is, let's go to another source. Actually, restorative justice. For those of you who may not know what this concept means in the criminal justice arena. So, figured before we go into this article, let's read some definitions and see what this truly is. This comes from a nonprofit organization called First Step Alliance. Restorative justice is a more empathetic and comprehensive approach to addressing criminal behavior when compared with the traditional justice model. It examines the harmful impact of a crime or wrongdoing and considers what can be done to repair that harm. This cooperative model typically includes government and legal professionals who serve as facilitators in a process that aims to achieve offender accountability, reparation to the victim, and full participation by all parties impacted by the crime. Within the restorative justice model, accountability means accepting responsibility for the wrongdoing and, to the extent possible, working to repair that harm done. This approach also seeks to understand the underlying reasons for the offense and help reduce the likelihood of reoffense. So there seems to be three main elements of this, which is encounter, repair, and transform. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So let me encounter. The first step in the process involves bringing together all parties who are impacted by the crime. Repair. The second principle seeks to address the individual needs of all stakeholders, including the victim's need for healing and the offender's need to make amends. Transform. Victims and offenders are transformed as a result of the restorative encounters and the work that is done to repair harm from the crime. That being said, we have somewhat of a foundation in restorative justice. I went through this very quickly. I don't want to make this a very long video. So let's jump. Let's go back to the article. So, investigative reporter Celine, let's go into what she's done. We're investigating a little known crime and punishment program run by Lee County. Critics say they appear to create their own rules, and we're challenging them on it. In a Wink News exclusive investigation, Céline McArthur takes you inside what's called the Neighborhood Accountability Board. We're forcing the door open and shining a light on this Lee County program so you can see how it works. The Neighborhood Accountability Board is made up of county workers and community volunteers empowered to punish your kids if they get in trouble with the law. County leaders refused to talk to me about it and did not want me in a recent hearing. A county worker announced on Facebook this meeting was going to happen without media and without an attorney present. So we have the receipts. Seems to be a Facebook post from one of the members of the N.A.B. It says, I'm taking the case now. I will have to school the parent on how restorative justice is not a punitive program. He has a lot to learn. There will be no media there. There will be no attorney. Lee County Youth Services Coordinator Nora Donato Hitchcock's public Facebook post regarding the Neighborhood Accountability Board. But when the county checked with the state attorney's office, they learned they couldn't keep us out. Okay, so here we have more receipts. Seems to be an email from the investigative reporter. Actually, it's to the investigative reporter from a Lee County official, which says, Celine, per our recent conversation with the state's attorney's office, meetings of this nature do not exclude members of the public or members of the media. And this seems to be Betsy Clayton, communications director. Fort Myers criminal defense attorney Brian Edwards says it's a diversion program, usually offered to kids in lieu of a trial, not after one. Never had anybody sentenced essentially to diversion after trial, said Edwards. Daniel Marquez, the boy arrested, perp walked, locked up, and then tried for sending a threatening text when he was 10 years old, was court ordered to go before the N.A.B as part of his probation. If he does what he's told, his guilty verdict, currently on hold, could go away. I have experience working with nonprofits, and this seems to be sort of like an alternative to incarceration program. I've never heard of these neighborhood accountability boards. This seems to be something occurring across our nation. So let's take a look. The county claims what you're about to see is restorative justice. The Marquez family says, if that's true, if that's the case, who was helped? A group of 5 people are seated around a table. 3 are public employees, Lee County's Director of Human and Veteran Services, Roger Mercado, and Youth Services Program Manager, Nora Donato Hitchcock, along with Probation Officer Stephanie Weiss. The community members who chose to volunteer for Daniel's session are Bethany Quisenberry and Daniel Clark. They're joined by Daniel Marquez, who is the boy, 11-year-old boy, his father, Derek, and brother, Jonathan. Quote, "We're here to talk about what happened," end quote, said Donato Hitchcock. For 40 minutes, the panel fired off questions about what led up to Daniel's arrest. And apparently, there's a slew of articles about this boy's arrest, some threatening text messages, and how it was handled, and how this boy was perp walked. Uh, Maybe I'll cover that in another video. It's important that you tell the truth, Donato Hitchcock warned Daniel. The questioning was similar to what the boy faced at trial. Clark, what were you thinking when you sent the Google image of the gun? Quisenberry, were you texting him a lot? Was it unusual that he wouldn't answer? Quisenberry, so when this dad answered, what did the dad say? Clark, you said that you were in the military, you have access to guns. Do you have guns in the home? Clark, so did you hear anything in school about the recent shootings or anything like that? Mercado, did they do fingerprints and that kind of stuff and ask you questions? Daniel, I don't really remember. My impression was that it was an interrogation, said Derek. The panel then wanted to discuss the harm done to everyone involved. The friend Daniel sent the text to, and his family, Daniel and his family, and the community. By definition, it's a fundamental principle of restorative justice, which brings those affected together and encourages accountability. The image above is a list created by Lee County Youth Services Program Manager Nora Donato Hitchcock and discussed at the Neighborhood Accountability Board. However, community impact was not explored in the meeting, and Daniel's friend and father did not show up or submit an impact statement for group discussion. They didn't have to do either. In the meeting, the panel also did not want to talk through what the Marquez family said harmed them the most. Sheriff Carmine Marceno's social media campaign, which drove the family to defend themselves in court, in the court of public opinion. It's created mental distress with PTSD, and they just stared blankly and then changed the subject, said Derek. Oh, I wonder why this wasn't discussed, the impact on the family. The experience had created some challenges for you guys. What we wanna make sure that we do is compartmentalize because everything that happened outside of this room has nothing to do with us talking to Daniel. Director of Lee County Human and Veteran Services, Roger Mercado's remarks to the Marquez family. Early on in the meeting, Mercado told the Marquez family the experience had created some challenges for you guys. What we want to make sure that we do is compartmentalize because everything that happened outside of this room has nothing to do with us talking to Daniel. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in in my entire life to tell an 11-year-old child who was 10 at the time to compartmentalize, said Hilton Napoleon, Daniel's attorney for his appeal. Napoleon says if the Neighborhood Accountability Board really wanted to address the harm, Sheriff Carmine Marceno should have participated in the meeting. The fact that he has gone out and perp walked an 11-year-old child, he doesn't want to have to answer that because he knows what he did is wrong, said Napoleon. If he really believed that what he did was right and that what is happening to Daniel was the justice that Daniel deserved, he would be the first person to get in front of a camera and talk about it. He's not camera shy by any stretch of the imagination. Napoleon's also challenging the board's endgame. It's almost like a redo of the trial to get him to admit something that maybe the prosecutor forgot to ask them during questioning. And this is not a second bite at the apple, said Napoleon. In the end, Mercado and Donato Hitchcock came up with what they called the case plan or punishment for Daniel. Conversation with a local felon turned activist, meeting with a law enforcement officer to discuss proper social media use, and a career assessment test. Ricardo asked Daniel, so is this something that you think you'd be willing to do just to kind of help you figure out your future a little bit? Daniel appeared unsure on how to respond. His father was confused by his suggestion to give him a personal personality test that would help him determine a career at this point in his life makes no sense, said Derek. That's not restoring anything. That's not helping anymore. It's not helping anyone in the state of Florida, said Napoleon. Sandra Pavalka is a professor and director of the Institute for Youth and Justice Studies at FGCU and an international expert in restorative justice. I've made it my life's work, said Pavalka. Pavalka is not involved in Daniel's case, so I gave her a detailed rundown of what happened in the meeting. Well, it's not a true restorative process, said Pavalka. She says that's because no harm was repaired and no lessons were learned. It's really important to include those three areas: the community, the victim slash survivor, and all those parties who are involved, said Pavalka, she added. So hopefully with your story, we'll be able to address that and really point those out. Roger Mercado, who oversees the program, would not offer any explanation for what we witnessed. No one else on the panel would talk to us either. Jeffrey Myers retired as deputy chief of Fort Myers PD 2 months ago. He wasn't involved in Daniel's case. It says our investigation is changing how the justice system operates in Lee County. It's absolutely making a difference, said Myers. He added, I can tell you here in Lee County with judges, with people at the state's attorney's office, with law enforcement, with probation, everybody's talking about what should we do should this happen again. The county said 764 children have gone before the N.A.B. from August 2018 through July 2023. We reached out to Mercado and the Lee County Sheriff's Office for comment. No response. So there we have it. So closing thoughts about this. So the concept of a neighborhood accountability board seems genuine. It seems it has good intentions. The problem seems to be the execution. I can understand from a father's point of view um, that this seems to be very one-sided. It seems the family of the youth who was convicted had a problem with being perp walked, and they had a problem with the sheriff's social media post communication regarding the child. So there wasn't the accountability from the law enforcement point of view. So that's why it doesn't seem to be true restorative justice. Hopefully that can change in the future. God bless. Take care. Stay vigilant.